Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring the Book of Ruth.
Oh, the Book of Ruth.
Yeah, a story that's just packed with loyalty and redemption and legacy.
Right.
It's incredible how this story, even though it's set thousands of years ago, still has so many parallels to modern life.
It really is amazing how these ancient stories,
Yeah,
still speak to us today.
totally. So the story begins with Elimelech and his wife Naomi and their sons living in Bethlehem.
Okay.
And then famine hits.
Yeah.
And they decide to leave everything behind and head to Moab.
Wow.
It's a really desperate gamble, but they're just hoping to survive.
Yeah, you can imagine how hard it would have been to leave their homeland.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, leaving behind everything you know.
Yeah, your community.
Your support systems.
Your identity, everything.
Yeah, it was a huge decision.
Yeah, for sure. And unfortunately, tragedy strikes soon after they arrive in Moab.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Elimelech passes away, and then both of his sons die too, leaving Naomi all alone with her two daughters-in-law.
Okay.
Ruth and Orpah,
Ruth and Orpah.
who are both Moabites.
Moabites.
Yes. And so Naomi decides to return to Bethlehem.
What?
I know, right? But she urges Ruth and Orpah to stay in Moab.
Seems like pretty good advice.
Right, to rebuild their lives and find new husbands.
Yeah, very practical.
It makes sense. But then Ruth makes this incredible decision.
Was that?
She decides to go with Naomi.
Wow.
She says, where you go, I will go, your people will be my people, and your God, my God.
Oh, wow. Those words.
I know, every time I read those words, I just get chills.
It's so powerful.
I know. It's like you
Yeah.
really see the depth of their bond.
Right, like a bond forged in fire
Yeah.
through all that hardship and loss.
It's amazing, but it's more than just loyalty, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. When Ruth makes that choice,
Yeah.
it's not just Naomi she's choosing.
Right.
She's choosing everything that comes with her.
It's a whole new life.
A new land, a new culture,
Yeah, a new God.
a total transformation.
Yeah. Like, what was going through her head? Do you think it was just love for Naomi?
It's hard to say for sure.
Right.
Maybe some sort of spiritual yearning,
Yeah.
a sense of calling.
I think so. Well, it's definitely a leap of faith.
Absolutely, a huge leap of faith.
Especially because Moabites were considered outsiders, Sometimes even enemies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a big deal.
Huge. And this leap of faith, it kind of sets the stage for everything that happens next.
Right.
But before we get to that, I think we should talk about the idea of a kinsman redeemer.
Yeah, good point.
That comes up a lot in the story, and I think it's key to understanding the social dynamics of the time.
Oh, for sure.
So can you explain what it means exactly?
Yeah, so it's like a safety net for vulnerable members of society,
Okay.
especially widows.
Like Naomi.
Exactly. So a kinsman redeemer was a close relative who had this obligation
Okay.
to step in and protect their interests,
Okay.
especially to ensure the continuation of the family line.
Wow, so it wasn't just like a random act of kindness. It was like
Yeah.
a real social structure.
It was deeply ingrained in the law and the culture.
Okay, so then Ruth, determined to take care of herself and Naomi, she starts gleaning in the fields.
Oh, yeah, gleaning.
That was tough work, right?
Oh, backbreaking.
Yeah.
Basically gathering leftover grain after the harvest,
Yeah.
often done by the poorest of the poor.
Wow, so it really shows how resilient she is.
Yeah.
I mean, she's willing to do whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes to survive.
To support them.
Exactly.
And then Boaz enters the picture,
Oh, yes.
a wealthy landowner who notices her gleaning in his fields.
Right.
And he's just struck by her work ethic.
He could have easily ignored her,
Totally.
but instead he goes above and beyond.
Yeah, he shows her so much kindness.
So much kindness.
He makes sure she's safe.
And even tells his workers to leave extra grain for her,
Wow.
which he didn't have to do at all.
No, it wasn't required.
It was genuine compassion, real generosity.
It's almost like they were destined to meet.
Yeah, makes you wonder.
Like, was it just a coincidence or was there something more at play?
Right. Divine intervention, maybe?
It's a good question.
These seemingly chance encounters,
Yeah.
They make you think about the bigger picture.
It makes you think about your own life. And,
Oh, absolutely.
there's moments where a random meeting
Yeah.
or a small act of kindness
Right.
ended up having a huge impact.
Sometimes you just can't help but wonder if there's a guiding hand.
Totally. So before we get to the redemption part,
Okay.
let's talk about Naomi.
All right.
She's not just sitting back and watching all this unfold.
No.
She's actually quite a strategist.
Mm.
She recognizes Boaz as a potential kinsman redeemer,
Okay.
and she guides Ruth on how to approach him.
Wow. She's like a matchmaking mastermind.
I know, right? Even with all the grief and loss, she's still so sharp.
She's got it all figured out.
So, following Naomi's advice, Ruth goes to Boaz's threshing floor at night.
At night.
And she lies at his feet.
Oh, wow.
Which, to us, sounds a little strange. But back then, it was a big deal.
Hugely symbolic.
It was a sign of submission.
Putting your fate entirely in someone's hands.
And it's important to remember that she's not just looking for, material support.
Right.
It's about finding protection and belonging.
A future within Boaz's family.
Yeah, wow. It's a huge leap of faith, right?
Damn.
Putting your trust in someone you barely know.
Yeah, especially in a system that could have easily exploited her.
So can you imagine having to take a leap of faith like that?
I mean, it's scary.
It is.
But sometimes those leaps of faith, they lead to the most amazing things.
That's so true. And in Ruth's case, her trust in Boaz pays off big time.
It really does. But we'll have to wait until next time to find out how.
Stay tuned to find out what happens next. Okay, so last time we left off with Ruth taking that huge leap of faith.
Yeah, lying at Boaz's feet.
That's right. What happens next? I'm dying to know how Boaz reacts.
I can imagine he was pretty surprised.
Yeah, waking up with someone at your feet.
Yeah, but he figures out pretty quickly what it all means.
Okay.
And responds with kindness and respect.
Good.
Yeah, he actually calls her a woman of noble character.
Wow, he sounds like a good guy.
Yeah, he really does.
I mean, he could have taken advantage of the situation, right?
Definitely.
But he chose to honor her trust.
Yeah, and that says a lot about Boaz.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But you said there was a complication.
Oh, right, the complication.
Don't leave me hanging. What is it?
Well, remember that whole kinsman-redeemer thing we talked about?
Yeah.
It turns out there's another relative who's actually closer to Naomi's family.
Okay.
And according to custom, he has the first right of redemption.
So Boaz can't just marry Ruth.
Right. It's not that simple.
Wow, what a twist.
It really shows you how these customs and laws shaped their lives back then.
It really does.
And
so is this other relative going to step up?
Well, the story takes us to chapter 4.
Okay.
Where Boaz calls this big meeting at the city gate.
Oh, wow. So this is serious.
Oh, yeah. Super serious. Yeah. Elders, witnesses, the whole 9 yards.
Wow. It sounds kind of intense.
Yeah, there's definitely some tension in the air.
Yeah, I bet. So what happens? What does this other relative say?
At first, he seems interested.
Okay.
He acknowledges his obligation to redeem the land.
Okay.
But then Boaz adds a little detail.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, he says, Ruth the Moabite, you must marry her also.
Oh, so it's not just about the land.
No.
He'd be taking on responsibility for Ruth, too.
And any children they might have.
Wow, that changes things.
And you can tell it gives this guy pause.
Like he wasn't expecting that.
Right. Maybe worried about what people would think.
Yeah, marrying a Moabite woman.
Or maybe he's just thinking about his own inheritance.
Right.
Whatever the reason, he backs out.
What does he say?
He basically says, I can't do it. You redeem it for yourself.
Wow. So he just gives up his right?
Just like that.
Interesting. It's like his own interests came first.
Even though he was supposed to help.
Yeah. But that kind of gives Boaz his chance to shine.
Right. He doesn't hesitate.
What does he do?
He says, I will redeem it.
Wow. Just like that.
Yeah, he steps up and does the right thing.
So he secures Ruth's future.
And sets in motion a whole chain of events that will have huge consequences.
Okay, you're going to tell me something mind-blowing now. I just know it.
You bet I am.
It has something to do with King David, doesn't it?
It does.
All right, lay it on me.
So Boaz and Ruth, they have a son, Obed.
Okay.
Obed becomes the father of Jesse.
Okay.
And Jesse becomes the father of...
Wait, hold on.
Yes.
Are you saying that Ruth, this Moabite woman who started out as a widow, is in the direct lineage of King David?
Precisely.
No way! That's insane.
King David, arguably the greatest king of Israel.
Yeah.
And it all started with Ruth.
Wow, so her journey,
Yeah.
which started with such tragedy and loss, it leads to her becoming part of this huge story.
An integral part of Israel's history.
That's amazing. It's like all these twists and turns.
And it shows you that even when we feel small or insignificant, our choices can have a huge impact.
We're all part of something bigger.
Exactly. It's really humbling.
So Ruth's journey, it's amazing, right? It just goes to show how these small acts of loyalty and faith can lead to really big things.
Absolutely. Like ripples in a pond.
Yeah. Spreading out and having this huge impact.
I think it reminds us that we're all part of something bigger.
Totally. Like we're all connected.
Yeah. And our choices, they matter.
So what can we learn from Ruth? What are some key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I think the biggest one is the power of loyalty.
Yeah, sticking by someone even when things are tough.
Exactly like Ruth's commitment to Naomi,
Yeah, it led to her redemption and a place in history.
which she could never have imagined.
So sometimes the bravest thing you can do is just stay true to your values,
Even when it's hard.
even when it's really hard. And it's not always about big gestures either.
Right, the little things matter too.
Just being there for someone day after day,
The small acts of kindness and faithfulness.
they can make a huge difference. The book of Ruth, it also shows how God can work through ordinary stuff.
Yeah, it's like those everyday moments where
Yeah.
you look back and you're like, how did that even happen?
Totally. Ruth started out with loss and displacement.
And ended up in the lineage of King David.
It's wild. It makes you wonder if it's all part of a bigger plan.
There's definitely a sense of destiny there.
Right. Like some things are just meant to be.
It gives you hope, even when things seem uncertain.
For sure. And I think the book of Ruth also challenges us to think about how we're all connected.
Mm-hmm. Ruth was an outsider, a Moabite.
Yeah. But she became part of Israel's story.
What's a beautiful illustration of how we're all linked together.
No matter our background or circumstances.
Yeah, it really makes you think.
It does. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the book of Ruth,
Okay.
what's one final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
I think I would just encourage everyone to think about their own journeys
Yeah,
and the legacy they're creating.
that's a good one.
What small acts of loyalty and faith are you called to?
That's deep.
Because your actions, they matter.
You're part of something much bigger.
And you have the power to make a difference.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
We hope you've been inspired by Ruth's story
Yeah, it's a powerful one.
and that you'll take those lessons of loyalty and redemption and legacy with you.
As you go about your lives. Until next time, everyone.